Apple's HomePod is back, baby. It's been a long few years since Apple discontinued the original smart speaker that the company launched back in 2018. And now we have a brand new shiny HomePod full of new features and maybe better sound quality. I'm Jason Cipriani, and in this ZDNET video, I'm going to walk you through Apple's new HomePod, what I like about it, what I don't like about it. I've been testing a pair of Apple's HomePods for a couple of weeks now, and originally I set them up as a stereo pair connected to my TV via the Apple TV 4K, which then allows them to be used as an eARC device, which that is a funny word, but basically it means that anything that's connected to your TV, like an Xbox or a Blu-ray player, if you still have one of those, that audio output can then be routed from your TV through the Apple TV over to the HomePods. And normally I use a Sonos Beam soundbar for all of my audio on the TV for gaming, watching videos, whatever. But let me tell you, using a pair of these $299 bad boys was really eye-opening to me in just how good they sound. They sounded tremendous. I liked the depth that they added compared to the Sonos Beam. And I was worried about audio sync issues because remember, the connection from the Apple TV to the HomePods is completely wireless. So if it's going from Xbox to the TV to Apple TV to HomePods, I expected there to be some sync or lag issues, and there wasn't at all. I was actually able to play Call of Duty Warzone, and that's an important game to hear footsteps and shots and everything else and be on top of it. And it actually sounded really great, and it seemed to my ears to be in sync the entire time. However, the fun of the experiment came to an end when my kids tried watching some movies on Plex, and the audio sync was just completely out of whack. It was a few seconds off. I did tinkering with settings, get it down to maybe half a second off, but still it was noticeable. It was distracting. It was annoying. And so I quit using them as a stereo pair connected to my TV. Some searches online indicate this can be a hit or miss problem with Plex specifically. So maybe if I took more time to test it and troubleshoot, I could have figured it out, but I didn't have the patience. Plus, I needed to use these smart speakers as they're meant to be, dedicated in a room, pumping out sound, controlling a smart home, and doing what smart speakers do. Let me take you down a little bit of a rabbit hole and tell you a story about the original HomePod and my early impressions. And to be honest, I had bought it at the $349, so $350 price, fully expecting to return it within the 2-week return period after reviewing it for ZDNET. I kept it at the end of it, even though I wasn't very impressed, but I wanted to see what Apple did with the smart speaker. This was a new segment for them at the time. HomeKit was Siri really wasn't good. And I wanted to kind of see how the company grew smart speakers, Siri, HomeKit, home automation, all that stuff. Eventually, through software updates, I really started to truly enjoy using the HomePod. It is a device that I use on a daily basis. I grew to appreciate and enjoy the sound quality that came from the original HomePod, and then Apple discontinued it. And my trust in Apple moving forward with smart speakers on the high end was gone, as was everyone else's, because it was replaced with the $99 HomePod Mini, which I bought a ton of. I think we have 6 or 7 around this house, quite a bit. So when Apple announced the new HomePod, I was pretty excited. This is a clear indication that Apple is getting back into the smart speaker, at least the high-end smart speaker, and taking it seriously again, or at the very least plans on supporting smart speakers for a lot longer and making it part of their platform, right? Granted, the HomePod Mini has been out for a couple of years now, but there haven't been any updates besides new colors. However, Apple has updated the original HomePod and the HomePod Mini software this entire time. The HomePod, the original, and the 2023 HomePod run the same exact software right now, which is fantastic. Okay, backstory done. Wasn't a fan of the HomePod, became a fan of the HomePod, was sad, let down, Apple, disappointed, excited again, new HomePod. That's where we're at now. So when I started using the HomePod, which is basically the same exact size, also, as you notice, there's no cable. It's because it's removable now. Apple did us a solid, guys. It's removable, so you can move it around. You're not always having a cable behind you, or you can tuck it away. It's easier to hide, whereas on the original HomePod, you're not pulling that thing out. It's stuck. You pull it out, you're done, and it's discontinued, so you're really done. All right, so the two HomePods are actually identical in size now. There's no difference. The exterior of them, there are some differences. So on the original HomePod, you can see the display takes up quite a bit of space here, right? On the new one, it takes up less space, and it's recessed. However, here's the black one, and you can tell there are some minor color differences here. This is like more gray, this is more black. They really don't look all that different. So the design's pretty much the same, right? The displays they look a little bit different, but in reality, when you touch and hold the top of the display to light it up, on the new HomePods, the entire top of the display lights up now, and it has the Siri colors swirling, and it looks crazy and cool. On the original HomePod, it's about the size of maybe a 50-cent piece out of that entire large display, which is, I mean, back then it was cool, but now next to the new HomePod, it just looks silly and doesn't make any sense why it was so small. So that's one minor design change. You have the replaceable cable now, or the removable cable. You have the display. On the outside, there's that new color for the black, midnight. On the inside, the new HomePod has fewer tweeters. It went from 7 to 5, has fewer microphones. It also has now a temperature and humidity sensor inside, as well as Matter support. And Matter is a new smart home standard that is currently ramping up and getting off the ground that will allow you to control devices, your HomeKit devices with an Android device if they're Matter compatible. And this acts as a Matter hub for your Matter devices around your house. The original HomePod, Matter didn't exist back then. The original HomePod doesn't have that. Okay, so the real question, I think, is how much faster are the new HomePods? They're faster. Siri responses are faster, more prompt. But how does it sound compared to the original HomePod? Fewer tweeters. Are we worried about sound quality, or did Apple do some Apple things and make them sound better than the original HomePod? I'm here to tell you, with my untrained ears, they sound exactly the same to me. I've listened to several songs, one on the new HomePod, one on the original HomePod, back to back, 50% volume, and I have not been able to tell the difference. Again, a true audiophile, someone with better trained ears, maybe you're going to tell the difference. I imagine it's going to be very subtle and very minute, and at the end of the day, Apple is doing less with more on the new HomePod, which is impressive. But that means if you have the original HomePod and you really care about sound quality, you're not into home automation a whole lot, you don't care about Matter support or a bigger display or an attachable cable, there's no reason to rush out and buy a new HomePod unless two things happen. One, your HomePod breaks, or two, Apple stops supporting the original HomePod via software updates, which would make a lot of sense with iOS 16 and the releases, beta announcement releases coming up here in June. I can see them no longer supporting the original HomePod now that we have a new one out that supports all the shiny, new, fun things, right? Temperature sensor, Matter, all that stuff. That was a whole lot for not very much. And what I mean by that is, like, the new HomePod is great. Looks great, sounds great, has some new sensors built into it. It doesn't leave a ring, by the way. Remember the original HomePod? It would leave a ring on anything you set it on, any surface you set it on. I've seen pictures of the new HomePods leaving rings on surfaces, but I have moved these things around like crazy over the last couple of weeks, and not once have I picked it up and seen a ring on a desktop or tabletop or counter, or wherever I put it. Rings seem not to be a thing, at least in my experience. So the big question, right, the $300 question is, do you go out and buy a new HomePod if you have the existing HomePod? I'd say no. I said that earlier. Unless something happens, stick with what you have. However, if you're in the market for a high-end, great quality sounding smart speaker, the HomePod is the way to go. The HomePod Mini is good, don't get me wrong. It has some of the same features, like the temperature sensor, the humidity sensor. Apple actually enabled that in a software update recently. And it sounds okay. If I could afford it, if it was feasible, I would replace every single HomePod Mini in my house with a regular HomePod. because they sound that much better. But it's not worth it. If they weren't $300, if they were maybe $299, somewhere in there, I'd be tempted to replace some of them, some of my HomePod minis. But $300, this is very clearly a high-end device for people who really want a great sounding smart speaker that is integrated with HomeKit and all their Apple devices. You do a lot on these with your Apple devices, and I didn't even touch on that. That's for another video. All right, so upgrade only when you have to. If you're in the market for a high-end smart speaker and you live in Apple's ecosystem, this is it. The HomePod is back, and that is the most exciting thing about this, is that Apple is showing a renewed focus in its high-end smart speaker, which means good things are to come, right? Has to be. Thanks for watching. I'm Jason Cipriani. Make sure to check out ZDNET.com for more videos just like this one, as well as all the latest tech news and tips.